there's a lot that can be said about the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and there's a lot of ground that's been covered by people much more qualified than I am to be talking about Skyrim. But I'm going to be talking about it today just to kind of give my own thoughts and opinions across. Skyrim, of course, is the fifth game in the critically acclaimed and wildly renowned Elder Scrolls franchise, and it's arguably surpassed every other game in the Elder Scrolls franchise as a cultural stepstone in gaming and just in general. Personally, Skyrim is one of my favorite games of all time. I think while the main quest is a little bit lacking, I think Skyrim is a perfect fantasy game simulator. It's an RPG in every way it needs to be, but you can literally just walk into the game and do so many different things. I think there are a lot of flaws, and I think a lot of that comes from how the game was designed. The game officially started production a little bit after Fallout 3 was created in 2008, with the developers considering Skyrim kind of a spiritual successor to both Fallout 3 and Oblivion. The game developed roughly 100 different people, and some of them were series veterans, but a lot of them were new people from the Fallout series. Production, of course, was supervised by the very infamous Todd Howard. The design of the team was pretty much designed by hand. It's similar to Oblivion's game world in size. The mountainous topography of the world kind of makes the game seem bigger than it actually is, because a lot of it is filled up by mountains that you can't really traverse. In designing Skyrim's world, the team kind of opted for a somewhat weird approach rather than Oblivion, because they kind of went for a epic realism in Skyrim rather than Oblivion, which Oblivion was very inspired by Lord of the Rings when it comes to how everything was designed. In Skyrim, if Oblivion was Lord of the Rings, I would argue that Skyrim is Game of Thrones. It has dragons, it has the Nords, which are very much like the Northmen from Game of Thrones. The tone is a little bit more serious. The game itself is just much more grounded than I would argue you would have found in Morrowind or Oblivion. It feels like a much more grounded fantasy world. There's still magic, there's still all of the hallmarks of the Elder Scrolls series, but it's a much more grounded and serious game. And I think that's one of the things that made the game very approachable for a general audience. Skyrim, of course, was powered by Bethesda's Creation Engine, which is the same engine they've been working on from Fallout 3 onward. After Fallout 3's release, the team actually devised numerous design objectives to meet for Skyrim, which basically made Skyrim itself is working on an engine from the early Xbox 360 days, and you can tell there are glitches galore, of course, as there is in any Bethesda game, and it's one of those things where I enjoy the game a ton, but the glitches are readily apparent, and some might argue that is a flaw. I enjoy it enough as it is, but it is definitely a huge step down, I would argue, from the previous games that feel like every single game feels like it's a step up. If you go from Arena to Daggerfall, it's fantastic. If you go from Daggerfall to Morrowind, it's so impressive at how far they went. And then from Morrowind to Oblivion, it's like the graphics just jump up. The world goes bigger. And then you go to Skyrim, and it's like kind of the same. It's very if it's aged well thanks to modding and it being released every other year, it seems like now, on new hardware. But the game itself has definitely been showing its age, and I think that if modding for Skyrim didn't blow up as much as it has, I don't feel like the game would hold the same grip it has on me. For example, in the gameplay footage I'm playing for this game, I'm playing a modded playthrough of Skyrim. I legitimately cannot go back and play vanilla Skyrim as it is, because it's not that I dislike the base game, it's just I've played it so damn much that the only way I can enjoy Skyrim now is to go back and mod it. And that's not I wouldn't say that's a flaw in Skyrim. I would say that's a big boon. They encourage modding at Bethesda, and I think modding is a huge part in Skyrim's appeal, at least for me. When I first played Skyrim on my PlayStation 3, I was enjoying it, but it was a game that I very much was wanting to mod, and you couldn't really mod it that well on PlayStation 3, so jumping up to PC and playing it, it's one of those things where once I've modded it, I can't go back. There are certain mods that I just cannot play the game without, and I think it's a reason why the game has lasted as long as it has. And I've enjoyed the game a lot, and I've enjoyed playing it for this, and I would recommend anybody to go back and play it, modded or unmodded. It's a great game, and there's a reason why it's one of the best-selling games of all time, and why it's released every couple years again, because it's a good game, and pretty much any system out there can play it, from the Nintendo Switch to the Steam Deck to the PlayStation 5. Hell, in a few years you might be able to play it on your phone. Who fucking knows anymore? I'm sure Todd Howard will find a way. But anyway, that's it for this week. Everybody have a good one.